Tag TV, and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. And look back at 2008 and a view of the new year. We all know the headlines: Barack Obama's historic presidential victory, the Beijing Olympics, and Michael Phipps' string of triumphs. Wall Street's crash that is still sending shockwaves through the U.S. economy. But what about the Main Street technology news? Social networking becomes the next big thing. And now, from students to CEOs, it seems like everyone is using Twitter. Microsoft attempts to buy Yahoo. Obama campaign capitalized on technology as never before. The Hadron Collider powers up and down. The Phoenix Mars lander and great discoveries. Blu-rays, disc, wins over DVDs. Some 11 million netbooks sell in 2008, and more than 20 million more will ship next year. Then there's the smartphone. Apple reported 10 million applications were downloaded in its first weekend that it was released, and independent developers are now reporting earning hundreds of thousands of dollars on their iPhone programs. Viral expansion loops, infrastructure as a service, and clouds. From the LZR Racer swimsuit to scooping Martian soil to the Phoenix Lander onboard laboratory to the historic Obama presidential election that boasted 3 million supporters on Facebook and 4 times as many MySpace friends as John McCain. 2008 was a year to remember, and for some 401ks, I guess it was a year to forget. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 6, 2009, and this is a special year-end review and New Year look at what's coming up for Georgia's technology community as we Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. From record numbers of new TAG members to a record crowd at the first Venture Atlanta event and more. We'll look back at 2008. Then it's on to the future as we Tech Talk 2009. A Georgia Technology Summit that is only months away, yet already performing at never-before-seen numbers of sponsors and attendees. New membership opportunities, new programs, potential new societies, and the launch of the TAG Foundation Education Collaborative, and even greater commitment to legislative and economic development initiatives. Happy New Year to all our TAG members and to listeners across the World Wide Web. It's Tech Talk's annual year-end and New Year Gear Up special edition. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia, and this is TAG President Tino Mantella. Tino, welcome to Tech Talk, an unusual greeting for you, because I think you usually are the one that is greeting our guests.
I'm usually on the other side of it, but I'm happy to be on this side of it for this session, Frank, so good to be with you.
Pretty exciting, a banner year from 2008. Let's start with what's going on. Obviously, we're seeing some good numbers as far as membership is concerned. Why don't we start there?
Membership was great. We were extremely happy with the growth, particularly in the Premier category. The Premier membership is where the entire company can sign on, and we started out with basically zero. IBM had been the pioneer in 2007 to be part of that program, but the board approved the Premier program late in 2007, so we really kicked it off in 2008. We set a goal to have 35 Premier member companies, and we've just surpassed the 50 company mark, which is really, I think, a credit to what TAG has to offer and these companies in terms of their interest in participating. And a lot of them are the big name companies that people would know, McKesson and, as I said, IBM and GE Energy and just a number of other ones. But there's also mid-size and smaller companies that see the value of coming on and being part of the program.
And the Premier package, obviously, or the Premier positioning, is a partnership on a lot of different levels. It isn't just for the brand names. It's also for the smaller companies as well.
Yes, exactly. We do have a number of smaller companies that are involved with it, and they see the value, whether it's free postings on the job board or being part of the legislative agenda. So
it's a spectrum of ways that you can engage yourself in real activities, real action as far as the organization is concerned. And obviously,
that's right.
At the same time, great visibility and networking opportunities.
That's right. And, in this tougher economic time, these companies are, looking at all the possible options they can in respect to what they can reduce and what's important to them. And many of the companies have told us that the Premier membership provides an economical opportunity to continue to show their employees that they care. And so we're glad to be a part of that and help to add value, because once they join TAG, as you know, then there's access to a couple hundred meetings a year that gives the employees a chance to exchange knowledge, to understand best practices, and to participate as leaders as well.
Now, obviously, again, the overall membership continues on an upward scale, continuing to increase every year, a nice and strong membership, good balance in terms of the kind of categories. What's the vision there as far as the overall objective in terms of general membership is concerned?
Well, this year we have just reached the 6,000 member mark, and that's individuals. So if you're in a large company, and you opt into the system, then you are considered an individual member as well. So we started out a couple of years ago at 1,400, so we're really pleased with the growth. And next year we'd like to reach 7,500 members and a couple thousand companies in respect to that.
You know, one of the things I think it's important to note is that when we talk about members, not very many that I know are passive memberships. These are, you know, it's kind of what we talk about when you look at the, streaming media and you target a particular subject, and the numbers are not in the millions as it might relate to a broadcast program, but in the thousands or tens of thousands. But they're specifically targeted visitors or targeted viewers. We're talking not just about 6,000 or 7,500 members. We're talking about active participants, people that are involved in the organization in a spectrum of societies, spectrum of events, and a spectrum of initiatives. So that's really great, Tino, and I'm glad to hear those numbers continue to rise, and I'm excited for the projections for 2009. Let's talk a little bit about TAG's Foundation. I know you're kind of moving that to the next level as well. You've changed its acronym. It's not going to be the TAG Foundation any longer. Now we're talking TEC, T-E-C, which stands, I believe, for TAG's Education Collaborative. Go a little bit into that for us.
Yes, we did change the name, and the reason we changed the name was because people were misunderstanding what the organization was trying to do. When you think about foundation, you think about an organization that you write or go to visit, and you're soliciting dollars for them to achieve your mission. And we explored that as a possibility, but when we came down to it, we felt it was important, consistent with what we do on the TAG side versus the tech side, to be a direct provider to help young people, in this case, have experiences, or what we call experiential learning. So the TAG Education Collaborative is focusing on getting kids excited about math, science, technology, and engineering. And as you know, Frank, that's a huge issue for the U.S. And certainly for Georgia. We all know about the challenges with the education system here, although we recently heard from Superintendent Kathy Cox, who provided a lot of positive information in terms of some of the steps they've taken and what's starting to take hold. Nevertheless, TAG wants to be in the fray on this one and really have an impact in respect to getting more high school students excited enough about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to take it in college and graduate with a STEM degree, which then they can go on, hopefully, and whether they're a teacher or go into industry. And many of our companies are going to be looking for those folks. Many of those companies are already looking for people and can't find them. So we have an important role to play. We're kind of a restart because we were around 10 years ago, as TAG was initially formed during the boom period. The wisdom of the folks that were around them in leadership positions said, hey, we need to create a foundation to support basically the same thing, science, technology, engineering, and math. But when the bust hit in a little over 2000, that slowed down to a crawl, and even though we did some great things, including helping to start Tech High School, there wasn't a lot of activity. So now we've hired a program director, and we are excited to make a major difference over the course of the next several years in that area.
Well, the bottom line is workforce development. I mean, everybody's talking about economic development and prosperity as far as the state is concerned. We're not going to be able to continue to maintain our global competitiveness if we don't have the human capital to support some of these new innovations and new technologies. I'll invite our listeners, if you haven't already, there's a great series. Tino and I produced a series on STEM and on the new tech initiatives that can be found right here along with other selections on Tag Radio, on Tag TV. So you might want to take a listen if you haven't already. There were some really insightful comments made by some of the absolute top leaders as far as the education arena is concerned. Let's move from education to legislation. Let's talk a little bit about what TAG's doing now as it relates to dealing with public-private relationships.
And a little bit of history on that one, Frank. A couple of years ago, my board chairman and the incoming chairman and I visited the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and people wouldn't know Pittsburgh to be one of the hubs for technology necessarily, but the Pittsburgh Technology Council is strong, and we went up there for a day to do some best practice sharing, and we came back with an insightful look at what we wanted to do in the area of government relations. And whereas Pittsburgh had as a central point of their mission and their actual operation to be a leader and being a voice for technology in that particular area, we saw the value in that with the companies that we met with when we were visiting them. And so we came back and our board approved the idea of becoming more active in respect to the state's policies and practices, and to be a voice for technology, which at one point we had talked about as considering as part of our mission, but really put on the sidelines as we built the foundation of the organization. Now that we're stronger, we decided to take that on as an initiative, and we hired a director of government relations, and now have Kaylin Sewell in here, and she's doing a terrific job, and we've built a government relations task force, and we've come up with a platform that will guide us for the next few years. I'd like to just mention what the 4 platform issues are.
Sure.
One is focusing on innovation, which certainly is important in respect to technology. Second is we are interested in what we call economic gardening. There's a theme out there in terms of organic growth is where it's at. You know, the days of the big buffalo hunt, if you will, are coming to an end, and it's important to focus on the companies that are here, which is actually where America's growth has primarily been. And when you look at some of our companies that have grown organically, they make up a major portion of the workforce here in Georgia. Mm-hmm. You know, the entrepreneurs that are strong. And we've already talked about STEM as one of the initiatives, and that's a platform issue for us. And finally, rural technology, so that we're interested beyond the metropolitan Atlanta areas, how we can support growth in technology as a support for our communities that are in the rural areas. So an example of that would be certainly broadband and access to IT healthcare services as well. So we are looking forward to this next legislative agenda that comes up here, or the next legislative session that comes up here in early January. And we have a few issues that we want to make sure we can bring forward. One of them is this alternative funding bill that's been kicking around for several years, and hopefully this year we can get that approved. And there's some other issues in the areas of education that we also want to support. And we like the legislators to adopt a science and technology study committee that would act as hopefully the basis to make some major investments in innovation, technology, and science in the years to come.